So I got a call the other day from a fellow self-storage operator investor that owns a facility in a city where we have multiple locations. And he kind of starts out with, "Hey, you're not gonna like what I have to say here." And he's called before with kind of the same information, and I'll kind of get into that too. But seems like every time he calls, it's not great news. But he goes into, he's like, "Yeah, there's a facility across town, and I'm aware of the facility. I'm aware of the ownership group, I guess, and how they operate. They buy land in somewhat oddball spots for the most part, and then they build self-storage on these lots. And then their rates are usually the lowest in the market, at least lowest for any sites that have a website at minimum. So, and they never raise their rates from what I can tell. So, and it's kind of no thrills. I don't know how much, I don't know if they've got, I'm assuming they have someone answering the phone. They have to. They don't have anybody on site. I don't think most of them are gated, fenced. They may not have cameras. I could be wrong. So they basically just put buildings up. And I could be off with some of these things, but they come in cheapest in the market. They never raise street rates. Kind of the operator you don't want in your market, right? But anyways, they go into these oversaturated markets. Whether they know this or not, my guess is they do not know this, because they just keep building in these oversaturated markets, come in cheap rent, and think they're going to steal, renters, which obviously they do because they've got cheaper rent. And I know, talking to some other owners in some other towns where they've built, I mean, it's hurt those owners' businesses. So it's a poor model, and I'm sure they don't listen to this show, but it's just a poor model. I don't know what their goal is, other than, and I'm kind of giving you this backstory to kind of get into what this show's about. But and it just goes to show, like, there's different types of owners and operators. But I think the main owner, the person that kind of runs it, the day to day, I believe the person that's in it is also a builder. So I don't know if he's getting a cut for building these, and then doesn't really care how they operate, because I think they have either one or multiple financial partners. So he may just be happy that he's getting paid up front for the building. And then if their returns are something, then they're fine with. I have no idea. But clearly their day-to-day operations after it's built is not very strong. So with that said, the title of the show, the number one biggest threat to self-storage is oversupply, is more building, right? And this phone call, this guy that called me, he said, and he's called me before. Actually, I think this might be the third time. But in this city, and really the population of the county is, I think, around 70,000, so a decent amount of people. But in the past, we'll even call it 4 years. Well, the past year, there's been 70,000 worth of climate control built. And then I think another, we'll call it 50 of drive up built. And then prior to that, there were at least two or three other locations, probably another 50 to 100 square feet built, probably 3-ish years ago. So the market has expanded tremendously. I mean, that's easily doubling. That's got to be doubling the square footage pretty much within 3 or 4 years, which is technically overnight. So it's and we've got multiple locations there. Um, so to kind of go back to the main topic of the show, is the biggest threat to self-storage is more storage. And I'm going to get into how we, and actually I just thought of something, I'm going to write it down here. How we act as a team, to mitigate risk, to kind of get ahead of what's going on. But so to kind of back up a little bit, this owner operator that's building, we've got a facility, started kind of leaving town or kind of entering town, depending on which way you're going. And it's off the road, it's off a county highway. So it's kind of off the beaten path a little bit. It's probably, I don't know, we'll call it 300 yards off the county highway. So you can find it. Obviously, you can find it in Google Maps, which is, I think, how most people find their storage facilities when they want a rental. But it is off the road a little bit. And this new facility that's going to be built is on the county highway. It may be built back a little bit. I was trying to look up a piece of land that they're building on, but it may be built. It's still going to be way more visible than mine, at least from the road, from the main highway or county road, state route, whatever it is. So they'll have better visibility without a doubt. And that is probably out of all of our sites, we've got 18 sites. I would say that's the hardest for us to lease up. So clearly, this owner operator has not done their due diligence to look for demand, to see what's going on with our facility and how well it's doing or not well it's doing. Again, it's one of the harder ones for us to lease up. Clearly, they haven't done any of their homework there, and they just found some land. They're like, yeah, you know what? Let's build here. So we've got to get ahead of the game, but we're dealing with, and I'll compare to this to another scenario. This owner operator will not, well, call him operator. That's quotation marks. Not a very good operator, right? So kind of bottom of the barrel with operations. So it's kind of a different strategy that we're going to have to implement. On the flip side, we've got another town that we're in. We'll call it, I don't know, 30, 40,000 people. Someone's building, they may have some drive up, but from what I understand, it's mostly climate. And I know the group pretty well. I know the owner. They do a good job of managing. I'm not crazy that they're going to build basically the same type of scenario as the first one. They're building, we're kind of back off a cul-de-sac. They're building on more of the main road there. Both of them are somewhat off the beaten path, kind of. But theirs will be more visible for sure. But if you're going down that road, you're probably going to know both sites are there. But that one is a more experienced operator, builder and operator, but they're more experienced and they're better. They will raise rates. They'll require tenant insurance. They'll do all the things that a lot of good owner operators do, or just operators in general. So two different scenarios, probably two somewhat different game plans, but a lot of similarities too. So the biggest threat to self-storage is just more storage, right? It's pretty simple. You can't just find a piece of land and build some buildings and hope that they will come. 20 years ago, you could do that. Today, it's different. The landscape's different. You've got more supply, and you have better owner operators. So you just can't do that. You've got to know the market. You got to know what's going on and why the first scenario, why they're building there. Again, I think the builder's getting a cut just because he's in construction. So doesn't care where he puts it. Just my feeling. I don't know. Again, I don't think he'll ever hear this show, but just not educate themselves. So really long term, will it hurt us? I think we'll be okay. One, and I'll get into this, but we've scaled. That's not our only site, right? We've got 18 of them. Plans to continue growing. This will be, I think they have around 10-ish sites that I know that they have. Well, you can go to their website and see. They're all like dollar move in or free month for the first month or two, like crazy specials to get people in. I don't know how they're making money, if they are, once they're operating. So I don't know the ins and outs, but I do know that they come in and they're just lowballing the market. So it'll be interesting to see how this shakes out. But here are some things in no particular order on how you can kind of mitigate your risk when there is new building oversupply in the market, and especially building right next to you, right? Some of these I actually, and I'm not going to name the ones. Most of these are between just myself and our team getting together and coming up with ideas. And then some of this is also Chat GPT that I like some of the ideas that that it gave me. But number one is raise rents before new supply comes in. And this is probably number one. I don't want to say number one overall, but probably one of the first moves to make, right? So for us, even though this facility is harder to lease up, yeah, we've got to probably raise rents a little bit for current customers. Street rates at some point will probably become the race to the bottom in a way. So we will have to get strategic with that once they build and once they have their aggressive rates and aggressive promos. We'll have to compete with that. And this kind of goes back to scale. We can do that, right? What's probably going to be a price war, unfortunately, but we also have, we've got better systems. We have better operations. We have better things in place. Our facility there is fenced and gated, cameras, better security. So, and better customer service. Our customer service is absolutely awesome. So I think, our thrills, even if we're a little bit more expensive, even if we're decent amount more expensive, our service proves that we can be. But we do have to raise rents day one, or not day one, but soon. We've got to raise those before they start building. And then this is actually Chat GPT one. Well, I will tell you this. It says lock them in. And the way you lock your current customers in is make sure a lot of them are on auto pay. We're already doing that. Loyalty discounts and great customer service. We're already kind of doing all those things. We're already hitting those things. So I'm pretty confident there, on what we're doing. Next one is SEO. Dominate Google, dominate Facebook, dominate marketing, right? In this market, we do some different things. We do have some Google ads. We'll do Facebook postings in local groups, and we've also done billboards in that city. Right now, I think we're about 2 weeks into having a billboard. Well, actually, I think there's 3 locations up. Haven't seen that come to fruition yet, but I know we did it last year, and we had a ton of move-ins from the billboards. So we'll see how this year goes. But we're trying to do, especially marketing, we're trying to do things that others are not. And billboards, print billboards, digital billboards, those are ways that we're doing things differently than most storage owners. Next on the list to mitigate, risk when there's oversupply is reduce move out triggers, which, a lot of these are pretty much common sense, but how many people are really getting ahead of the ball and doing these things? So, one, don't hit them with a large rent increase, which we already know that we're not going to do that. We'll probably do a few bucks at most. Poor communication, which we've got a great customer service call team. I don't foresee that being an issue. And then it goes into kind of like maintenance issues, gate issues, bad lighting, trash, weeds, all those things, which our sites are, especially now, we've got a great team. Our sites are looking absolutely great. This site this site that I'm talking about with scenario number 1, it is probably one of our cleaner sites. It's one of our newer sites. Scenario number 2, with the climate control going in near us, that site is an older site, so it'll be definitely a different product from the climate control. Climate control will still be a factor to us without a doubt. They'll still get some rentals that normally we may have gotten. But for the most part, different products, so we should be okay there. But as far as maintenance things, especially the first scenario, absolutely great. Second scenario, it is kind of one of our I don't want to say headache. We've definitely cut down a lot of the headaches, and we've made things a ton better. We've painted it. We've got some privacy fencing things that we've done. Got cameras everywhere, so we've done some things to make that better too. Next one is minimize expenses where you can, but that's also, you can't cut corners, right? So that goes back to, you don't really want to cut advertising unless you find out that your advertising, this is something we've been playing with, unless you find out your advertising isn't really working. And a lot of those things is just cost per move-in. What's your cost per move-in for your advertising? And then you also don't want to minimize your maintenance cost, right? So if you're trying to cut costs with mowing, cutting, spraying for weeds or whatever it is, gate issues, you're just trying to limp by, that's not going to help either. But if there are areas where you can cut or minimize expenses, it's ideal, right? Because at the end of the day, yeah, we're both sites more than likely will probably take a hit. I don't know. And actually, both scenarios, we've got multiple sites in both towns, which helps. So we've got brand recognition there. So that helps. So while it may hurt one facility in each town, we've got other facilities picking up the slack, and not just in those towns, but again, we've got 18 across Ohio. So we're not dependent upon 1 or 2 sites to kind of carry us through here. And that kind of does go into My next thing is scaling in different markets. I think that's the biggest thing out of all these. Yes, you know, I should, and if you're in the situation, probably implement a lot of these, if not all of these things that I've just brought up to kind of mitigate risk. But for me, what helps me sleep at night is the scalability, this how we've scaled. We're not dependent upon one or two facilities. Even if well, I don't say even if we were, even so, out of our 18, they're all cash flowing, they're all making money. Even if our top 3 to 5 had oversaturation and people built across the street from them, we'd still be fine because we'd take a hit there, but we'd still be fine because we've got other sites, other markets that we're in. And now, obviously, there are other factors that, if the world, we go into World War III here, or something crazy happens and the economy completely shifts. Yeah, there's things out of our control, but these are things in our control that even if people build, we still have control because we've scaled and continue to scale. And I think that's, to me, that's the biggest thing. That's the biggest takeaway is you can't just buy 1, 2, 3 facilities. Because at some point, if we just had, we'll call it these 2 facilities, and we've got people building across the street from us, I would be freaking out. I would be freaking out and or selling right now, without a doubt. So I think the big, even trying to get ahead of all these things that I've talked about, raising rents, all those things, even if we did all those, I would still be freaking out if these were our 2 only sites because I know it's going to take a hit. Um, but I also know that at some point, it's funny because I've ran this through AI models continuously just to, I want to learn as much as I can, especially about oversupply and building in general, people building self storage in general in markets. And I've only been in self storage for 7 years. While it feels like a long time to myself, it's not a long time in storage in general and in market cycles, right? So I want to learn as much as I can, but supply eventually gets absorbed, right? Supply eventually gets, it kind of catches up. When that is, it's hard to tell. Um, my guess is scenario 2, it'll get caught up faster for me because it's a different product and that town, it's easier to get rentals. Scenario 1, the absorption could take longer. So when things kind of shake out it's been 3, 5 years, what's it look like? That's when, and I've even ran this through, other models and AI models and gotten kind of feedback and case studies on this stuff. But yeah, more people probably do rent the more self storage supply there is, right? So just think about couple of years ago when everyone was 100% full, right? And then people started building. Well, there are a lot of people that were on wait lists that couldn't rent a unit. There's people now that they're on wait lists, can't rent a unit. So eventually that those people, instead of saying, well, I can't rent a unit, so now I got to figure out plan B, they don't rent a unit, right? But now that there's more inventory, they can rent a unit. Those people could be staying. I don't remember what the average length of stay is for storage customer. I want to say it's, don't quote me. I want to say it's 6 to 9 months, something like that. Right. So there's been a lot of people over the years, especially past few years, that weren't able to rent a storage unit that now we'll be able to because there's more supply. And it's sticky, right? They're going to be there 6 to 9 months more than likely, possibly longer. So over time, and I do think just in general, and I'm kind of going off path a little bit here, but I think in general, as a society, unless things change dramatically, which anything's possible, but I think in general, people are buying more junk and using more extra space that they need with storage units. So I think in general, and you can look over the past, I think storage has been around roughly 40 years. You can look over the past 40 years, and without a doubt, 1, people have more junk, and 2, people are without a doubt renting more storage. And I don't see that trend slowing down in the near future. Knock on wood, it obviously could. And it's going to go up and down. And right now, to me, we're in somewhat of a downcline or a recession, maybe in self storage. And a lot of that has to do with houses aren't selling, nobody's moving, and we need movement in storage. whatever that is. So that's taking a chunk out right there of renters. But back to the list here. I want to kind of end with, we already talked about scale. We talked about supply eventually gets absorbed. That just happens over time. But I want to talk about one kind of it factor that piggies back off scaling, and that's our team. In fact, we had a team call yesterday, kind of a leadership team call. Myself and two others on our team, our two leaders on the team, that I brought this up about the scenario number one about, and I was kind of not freaked out, but obviously, I'm sure we're gonna lose some rentals, some new rentals. Hopefully, we keep we're ahead of the people building, because we already have renters in there, right? But it's still nerve wracking, right? It still makes you nervous because you don't know what's going to happen. But it was nice talking to them, because I had some great ideas. Actually, some ideas I did not write down here. Some ideas that we'll kind of keep to ourselves, on how to mitigate risk, and continue rolling. So that's one kind of it factor is, I wouldn't have this team, this great team, if we wouldn't have scaled. If I would have stopped at 2, 3, maybe even 5, yeah, definitely 5 facilities, I would not have this team. I would maybe have 1 part-time person, but probably not A players like what we've got. So again, everything goes back to scaling, to mitigate risk, in my opinion. We're in different markets. We've scaled in different markets. That helps as well. But it's all gone back to, for me, to help me sleep at night with oversaturation, with oversupply, just scaling. You've got to buy more. You've got to, and get in different markets. To me, that's number one thing. And I kind of want to end on that is to mitigate my risk is just scaling, buying more, and in different markets. And that doesn't mean, I've been fortunate enough to buy all in Ohio within 2 hours of where I'm at. You don't have to do that. I've got buddies that live on East Coast, and they buy in Alabama, Louisiana, Texas, all over the place, and make it work. Different markets, right? Completely different markets, different states. So to me, the most important factor, out of all this to mitigate risk when there's oversupply and people continue to build, even though they don't know what they're doing, is just to scale. I know that's easier said than done, but I also believe right now is a great time to buy. So with that, we'll wrap this up, but I do want to remind everybody that if you're an experienced self-storage owner, operator, investor, whatever, and looking for a like-minded group that wants to bounce ideas like this off of, reach out to me. I am leading the insiders at Storage Rebellion. This is not a sales pitch. This is just me trying to get more qualified, not qualified, but more experienced. We've already got a ton of experienced investors in that group, storage investors in the group, but we want to get more. So if you have any interest, feel free to reach out to me. Obviously, you can find me Instagram, Facebook. But that's all I've got. Hopefully, you don't have the oversupply issues that I'm running into. But even if you do, we did give you some things today that will hopefully counteract that, and hopefully you do well. So we'll see you guys next time. Thanks.